There has been a lot of talk going around that Keke Palmer is not as successful as Zendaya because of colorism. Colorism in Hollywood has existed in Hollywood since the beginning of Hollywood. It began as pure racism and discrimination against people of color, especially blacks, but as time evolved with the fight for equality, civil rights, the passing of laws, and establishing policies, racism has taken on not a lesser role, but a more disguised appearance, that being of colorism. The act of colorism is usually the assumption that you are more attractive, more acceptable, more agreeable, and more hygienic when your proximity to whiteness is closer. In the US, a great number of our slaves were abused and raped. A telltale sign was the mixed-race offspring that was produced. The origins of skin color discrimination came when fair-toned slaves would receive preferential treatment. Light-skinned slaves were more likely to work indoors closely with the master's family, because they technically were family, whereas dark-skinned slaves were to remain outdoor in the fields. Outside of the States, colorism had similar meanings. It was more so defined with classism. To be darker toned was typically frowned upon because it was associated with labor and peasantry, whereas the lighter tones were associated with wealth and white collars. Disappointingly, we are still seeing the effects of inequality and being judged for our physical appearances. Black people not only face extreme colorism with other races, but we also face it within our own community. Unfortunately, we sometimes use it as a deciding factor in whether we will lend our support to a fellow African American or not. And that has trickled all the way into Hollywood. Zendaya, by textbook definition, is biracial and a mixed-race woman. She got her start on the Disney Channel sitcom Shake It Up as Rocky Blue. From there, Zendaya guest starred in multiple Disney movies and shows, even snagging her own solo show in 2015. Fast forward 7 years later, and she is widely known for her role as Rue Bennett in the teen drama series Euphoria, and as MJ in the rebooted Spider-Man franchise. Zendaya has an impressive catalog of performances that have earned her global recognition. And even though Zendaya is talented, some couldn't help but to notice the feat of Keke Palmer. You see, Keke Palmer is what most consider a brown-skinned or dark-skinned African-American woman. Unlike Zendaya, she did not get her start on Disney. She was making appearances on crime dramas and well-established movie franchises. It wasn't until 2008, when Keke had already had 14 projects under her belt, that she had gained her very own TV show on Disney Channel called True Jackson VP. You could say that her 2006 breakout role was Akilah in The Bee, but becoming a Disney kid earned Keke a lot of mainstream exposure. Fast forward 14 years later, and Keke Palmer has made herself into a household name, starring in over 60 projects, winning numerous accolades, hosting red carpet shows, or even her own. The math doesn't lie when you compare the resumes of Keke and Zendaya. However, it is noticeable that Zendaya receives more public recognition than Keke does. Considering the struggles with classifying skin tones to deem someone as worthy, it is natural for people to assume that this is the only factor keeping Keke in the background. While there is definitely some truth to this claim, I don't live my life assuming that race or colorism is the sole reason I face any opposition. It's logical and realistic to consider the surrounding factors that make up a situation before jumping to what could possibly be the harshest conclusion. When I see both of these beautiful, gifted women, I see the culmination of the work they've put in. Zendaya immediately takes me back to Euphoria, which is my favorite work of hers so far. Second, I think of the type of person she seems to be. Laid back, reserved, kind-hearted, and a genuine spirit. When I see Keke, I think of all the content and support that she has put into the Black community. She is virtually unproblematic, energetic, uplifting, and authentic. I see two role models who have trailblazed for an entire generation. That said, in the same breath, I can also see their differences. Zendaya. I would be an airhead to imply that physical appearance has nothing to do with success. While we do know of many dark-skinned women in the industry who are successful, it's almost without saying they typically have to work harder. Going back to the origins of colorism, if you applied preferential treatment to a woman of lighter skin, this is how it would come out in modern times. Racial ambiguity. Racially ambiguous people usually are more eligible for a wider range of movie roles. Zendaya in real life is biracial, so it's not inaccurate for her to play a biracial character. But in the show Euphoria, her younger sister Gia, played by Storm Reid, is actually full black. She looks to be mixed because of her facial features, but most importantly, her fair complexion. Her and Rue, Zendaya's character, shared a black mother and a white father on the show. This is an example of the flexibility a lighter complected individual may have in this line of work. Relatability. I think I've established the perceived importance of skin color enough, so at this point, what's known does not need to be explained yet again. Personality. In today's world of social media, the acceptance of different people is in a place this world has never seen before. We support people for their figures, their disabilities, their haves and have-nots, and even lifestyles. When the internet becomes overwhelmingly informative of people's everyday lives, Zendaya is a refreshing reminder of simplicity. Her go-with-the-flow reserved nature adversely pulls people in. Being so private has made her so public. She also has a personality that closer aligns with mainstream attitudes: agreeability, unproblematic, classy. You can take her anywhere and she will blend in with the environment. Whereas if you were to look at a Cardi B, she seems to be a very fun person to be around. However, I wouldn't ask her to come with me golfing at a country club or to go with me on a wine tour. She'd be too disruptive, and that turns people off. In this industry, unless you conform, your fame and opportunities will cap at a certain level. Body. Zendaya's body type is described as an ectomorph. She is tall and slim with narrow shoulders and a low muscle mass percentage. Despite the recent surge of wanting bigger butts, bigger lips, bigger boobs, bigger hips, skinny will always be in. Sure, Zendaya does face a lot of body shaming backlash, but she still has a frame for a runway. Her body allows her fashion to go uninterrupted. Lizzo couldn't wear what Zendaya wears without distraction. Heck, I couldn't wear what Zendaya wears. Dressing for your body type has a heavy influence on what people will say about you and even your character. She has had the privilege of wearing the top designer pieces of the world and has been deemed a worthy fashionista because of this. I feel this adds another layer to Zendaya's relatability. High profile romance. Though she has been pictured with a handful of love interests, Zendaya has only confirmed one, and that is Tom Holland. Tom is a well-accomplished actor from the UK. His breakout role that earned him superstar status is a reboot of the Spider-Man franchise. Since he has come on the scene, he's been a widely liked individual. Known for his humor, lightheartedness, and inability to keep a secret, Tom and Zendaya noticeably have a glowing chemistry. It was a matter of time before they actually became an item, and when they accidentally got caught by the paparazzi, it was like your mom finding out that you finally started dating your childhood best friend that she's been praying for you to end up with. We were all just so happy for them, and ever since, they've been riddled with good publicity. TikTok compilations, fanfiction stories, celebrity name mashing, you name it. Granted, they're both private and don't like intrusion, there's still a lot of Tom Daya worship that has positively swayed the blogs and magazines. This has earned the both of them a favorable amount of social media obsession. Tom Daya has become the new standard for Hollywood relationships. To branch off that, Zendaya is frequently put beside white counterparts. There are a few exceptions, but her filmography mostly consists of her in white-occupied spaces. Her Disney success has allowed her to amass a predominantly white fan base. Self-defense. In 2015, Juliana Rancic made racist remarks about Zendaya's appearance at the Oscars.
I feel like she smells like patchouli oil. Or weed. Yeah, maybe weed?
Hardy hard, Juliana. The now irrelevant talk show host was trying to take the place of deceased Joan Rivers, who was known to make provocative statements about people's fashion choices. Obviously, offensive comedy was not Juliana's strong point, and it was made apparent in Zendaya's response. She said, "There is a fine line between what is funny and disrespectful. Someone said something about my hair at the Oscars that left me in awe, not because I was relishing in rave outfit reviews, but because I was hit with ignorant slurs and pure disrespect." She continued, To say that an 18-year-old young woman with locks must smell of patchouli oil or weed is not only a large stereotype but outrageously offensive. I don't usually feel the need to respond to negative things, but certain remarks cannot go unchecked. I had to stop myself from being ignorant and being a kid. I had to really take my time and think about what my parents taught me, which is the most important things in the world are your voice and your knowledge, being that they're both educators. So I sat in my room and I used both of those things. Most 18-year-olds of the internet today would have responded with an equally ignorant response to mask the hurt, but Zendaya maturely reconciled with the disappointment and extended a graceful response. It's treatment like this that has allowed Zendaya to let her true character shine. Over the next few years, she would be met with adversity in regards to her mixed race, whether that be getting denied service or backlash for taking a role from a white woman. Zendaya never unravels, adding to the reason why so many people love her. Harvey Weinstein. It's known that when you become a Disney exile, you may turn to drugs, porn, or other dysfunctional vices. And if you haven't, then you're one of the lucky ones. But that luck doesn't last long because you still have to go through Harvey Weinstein if you want to be anyone. At least that was the truth before May 2018. It hasn't clicked for many yet, but a few people have side-eyed Zendaya's true involvement with Harvey Weinstein. It was rumored that he had gotten Zendaya her role in The Greatest Showman and Spider-Man and a whole magazine cover. Ryan Seacrest admitted that Harvey was a fan of Zendaya's, and he even asked her to perform at the Weinstein Company's pre-Oscar event. From there, she was invited to sit at his own table and was fitted to wear his wife's designs. We would then see the skyrocket success of Zendaya Coleman. However, she would later speak out about Harvey Weinstein's allegations in a vague tweet. If you don't know, Harvey Weinstein was a bigwig in Hollywood, had connections all over the place, knew everybody, and could essentially control your career with a snap of a finger. For years, he was grooming young women, and I'm sure some young men, in exchange for giving them a successful movie career. And some of the biggest stars we see today might have had something to do with Harvey Weinstein's special touch. Frankly, Hollywood is like a small island. Everyone knew what he was doing and decided to turn a blind eye until it wasn't cool to be associated with him anymore. While I commend Zendaya for her perceived good character, I still feel a little weird about this one, but all we can do is speculate and hope that Zendaya has never had to deal with any, predators in Hollywood. When you think of Keke Palmer, the first thought is not typically how well she twerks, how controversial she is, or the amount of relationships she's been in. You think of a bubbly personality, the girl who has a 411, the girl who is at all the main events and has a pristine reputation. But despite her impressive body of work, Keke kind of fades into the background. A lot of us first saw Miss Palmer as a cute little intellectual from Akeelah and the Bee. We saw her again as Nikki in Madea Family Values, and yet again alongside Ice Cube in The Long Shot. Seeing Keke Palmer everywhere would become the norm for a lot of black people in America. In 2008, she stopped being that little girl from Akeelah and the Bee and became True Jackson VP, a celebrated moment for little black girls everywhere. It wasn't every day you see a dark-skinned girl starring in her own show, especially with the powerhouse like Disney. Sadly, True Jackson VP was canceled after 2 seasons, but it didn't stop her hustle. We would later see her on Crazy Sexy Cool, The TLC Story, Scream Queens, and most recently Jordan Peele's Nope. People are raising eyebrows at the media's inquiry that this could be her new breakout role. While you and me have known of her since childhood, it brings light to the fact that she is still relatively unknown to a lot of people. So much so that I bet she could run errands and paparazzi would go on lunch break. And I don't mean that with any shade, but I can confidently claim that because I searched Keke Palmer paparazzi or Keke Palmer candid, and all of her photos are taken in professional settings or on her own. Whereas I looked up Zendaya paparazzi or Zendaya candid and it's flooded, specifically anything with Tom Holland. If I could safely make an observation, I would come to the conclusion that ultimately Keke Palmer's brand image is not fully clear to the masses. While I've never seen her in a bad outfit, she's not known for her fashion. While I've never seen her look a day over 18, she's not known for her youthful aura. While I've known Keke to pull some good-looking men, I've never known her to attach herself to anyone. She's a jack of all trades and a master of none? I wouldn't say that, but I just think she is very versatile and very available. Two things that can help her and hurt her, which I think we're seeing a little bit of both because her entire career is being compared to that of someone else's. As stated before, I am not ignoring the possibility of colorism playing a major role, but I do want to consider the other elephants that we are not addressing as a whole. To recap, I believe Zendaya has a lot more star power mainly because of her relationship, her good girl image, relatability, racial ambiguity, and the possible push of Harvey Weinstein. While I know Keke Palmer is successful, I believe she hasn't gained as much recognition as Zendaya for two simple reasons. She typically caters to the Black community first, and she has had a hand in everything, so it's hard to pinpoint a niche with her. I think sometimes it's important to step out of the box and realize the world isn't as black and white as media would have it seem. Many people flourish and succeed regardless of skin color or gender. Sometimes privilege that comes from unassuming areas of life are what help you become successful, like knowing someone at Google who gets you that position you've always wanted, or even being born in a country like America where, in comparison to many other places, it's like living in a lap of luxury. That is a closer step to success than most people have. So I hope you can understand my perspective and my refusal to play into the colorism card for the simple fact that I, as a dark-skinned woman, refuse to be a victim or oppressed by anyone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Please, please, please like this video, give it a thumbs up. I want to hear your thoughts about this very controversial topic. And please, please, please subscribe. And I will catch you in the next video. God bless.